Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is Chuck Flood Humper, and today we're going to be cleaning the second room in this house. In the very first one, you would have seen me clean the kitchen, and I had been talking about the fact that this is like a phase one cleaning, which means that we're not doing deep cleaning. We're not doing like inside cabinets and things like that. We're unpiling the house and then cleaning up the majority of the filth, like mouse poop and dirt and all that stuff. And then we're reorganizing as best we can to make it look at least cleared up and sort of symmetrical. And then phase two of the cleaning would be to go back and deep clean, doing inside all the cabinets and polish cleaning and all that stuff. This is still phase one cleaning, because now that we have the kitchen done, we're moving on to the dining room. It's like a dining room / nook sort of room. I think that's what they call it. Scientists call it that. They classify this as a nook / dining room area room. So all I'm going to do is unpile the room, get rid of all the trash, and then try to figure out what still looks useful and not ruined. So like everything ruined and garbage is going to be thrown away, but everything else I'm going to attempt to save. Then we're going to sort those into boxes, and then basically the only thing you can do in a room that's this cluttered where you can't just throw everything out is Tetris the room with boxes. We're going to attempt to Tetris this together in a way that kind of hides the boxes as much as we can. So suck it. I started out not wearing gloves because most of this stuff was just normal everyday, like bags and clothes and stuff like that. But as we get down toward the floor, I go ahead and put gloves on because then we're dealing with some pretty dirty stuff. Now, Jason's not with me this weekend because he's busy shaving old women bald, just random old women that he finds at the store, shaving them stone cold Steve Austin bald, and then leaning in real close and whispering, "This is the world." And I can't blame him. I mean, a dude has to do that sometimes. It's the only way that we can retain our masculinity. And then later tonight, he has plans of being evil and also flexing. Now, she had a ton of craft stuff up here, and so I'm trying to keep the craft stuff with other craft stuff. And then she had a bunch of bags, and so I'm going to use those bags as holding containers. She also has a lot of boxes in that back left-hand corner, and it's because at one point she was like doing stuff on eBay and Etsy and all that, and she has since stopped, but she still has all the boxes that she had originally bought. So all I'm going to do when I get back to that area here in a little bit is just move everything out, sweep and mop underneath, and just put those back. But that's kind of the way that I work these really cluttered houses. You have to move everything out of the area, clean the surfaces, and then figure out how to put things back in a way that's not just as cluttered or looks like chaos. That's really difficult to do in places like this because I talked to the guy who lived there and told him that if he doesn't mind, at some point this summer or this spring, I wouldn't mind just renting them a dumpster on my dime. and then just going back with a group of like me, Jason, and our newest employee, Daniel, and then just getting rid of as much stuff as we can get rid of out of this house. But outside is almost as bad. The garage is completely full of stuff. The yard is just completely filled with old wood and just old stuff that's no longer useful. And they live really far out of town, so it's not like they can just bring this to the dump, and definitely the trash men are not going to pick this up. So I may just rent them a dumpster for like, say, 2 or 3 days, and then go back with a crew and clean out their yard and the inside of their house. And if so, I'll go ahead and film that. That'll be my first outside cleanup that I've done on the channel. But that'll definitely be further down the line. Now, what you're not seeing here is me putting all that stuff in this ever-growing massive pile of stuff off camera. So it's difficult to organize a room like this, but it's even more difficult to know how to manipulate the things that are in the room. So basically, I do a move out, move in method where you're moving everything out of the room just like you're packing up to move into a new apartment, cleaning everything, and then putting everything back into it. The couple things that I couldn't do that to were those little containers that are in the corner of the room are really heavy and they're loose, so I didn't want to move them. And then right next to that is a big cabinet type of deal, and it is super, super heavy. Since I'm working alone, I couldn't move that because that's guaranteed to throw my back out, but I could do it with the rest of the stuff. Now I'm going to clean the windowsill. That thing was just matted with dirt and mouse poop. For those of you wondering where all the mice came from, I mentioned in the last video that she lives right smack dab in the middle of just miles and miles of cornfields, and the closest neighbor is like at least a mile away. And what happens is the farmers harvest the corn, and then in the fall and the winter time, all the mice try to find shelter. And so they just overload any house that's within running distance. Then when it gets warm again, they all kind of migrate back out into nature and do their thing. But it's almost impossible to keep them out of your house when you live in a farmhouse. About the only way to do it is to have just a ridiculous amount of cats, in which case now you're just replacing mice with cats, and you basically have a zoo inside of your house. You got a little old lady who swallowed the fly situation. That rug desperately needs cleaned. She had she's got like 3 dogs, and at least one of the dogs had gone on this rug, and it smelled pretty bad. But I don't have access to my carpet cleaner on this particular day. Now, if I go back, which I should be going back to do 2 bathrooms, I will try to get some carpet cleaner solution and bring my carpet cleaner in here and do that rug, and it'll smell much better in there. Now, if you're wondering, most of the hoarder houses that I do smell really bad because there's a lot of garbage and rotten food and all that. This one had no smell whatsoever until I uncovered that rug. Once I uncovered the rug and the dog and mouse urine was exposed to air, then I could smell it pretty bad. But it didn't actually take that long to dissipate, but that's like the only smell that I ran into. I would have really liked to have cleaned out that cabinet, but we're going to save that for phase 2 cleaning. Right now, I just need to get the stuff that's out in the open and is visible. Then once we get the house back in good condition, then I can open up all the cabinets, pull everything out, clean those out, bring my shop vac and get all the mouse poop and stuff out of there, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of it in there. And then hopefully we can get to a point to where she can go through this stuff and say, all right, let's eliminate like half of the things I own. And I think that their house would be way more open and way more accessible. And then we could maybe turn that nook into a craft area, because you can tell she really likes crafts. If that were mine, I'd turn that into a dedicated spin kick area, because that's what I do in my spare time. Sometimes I'll just stand in my living room for hours just spin kicking nothing, spin kicking the air and yelling, "Do you like that?" And the air's like, "But yeah, I do. Just don't spin kick me in my air eye." She's got a lot of cool antiques in the house too, so I'm trying to put back certain antiques that are out in the open and use those as decoration. But there's a lot of stuff in here that just needs to be boxed up, which is what I'm doing. Now here's where I'm getting ready to Tetris this room. There is no other place that I can put this stuff, so I'm trying my best to put things back in a way where they stack nice and neat, but they're also hidden by the table. That way, at least whenever you walk by this little nook area, everything's not out in the open. That trash bag was really stuck in there, and I said a few bad words. So I'm just going to talk right now so that I can talk over the top of bad words that are being said. And it's changed. She had a lot of really cool wicker baskets and stuff in here too. And whenever I go back to do more cleaning, what I'm going to attempt to do is pull some of the things out of the cardboard boxes and put them in the wicker baskets. So at least if these things are going to be in storage, at least they can be in pretty storage. That's one of the things I'm really good at, is pretty storage. That's what they used to call me back in Minneapolis. Oh, pretty storage Johnny. Johnny Pretty Storage is what they used to call me. They're all like, he may not be the best at storage, but he sure can store some pretty. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This place had me flustered a few times because there's so much stuff. On the right-hand side of this screen, you can see some of it, but there's about 5 times that much as you go back into that other room. And then the doorway that's straight ahead up in the top right of your screen, that goes into a craft room and a laundry room, and there's just clothes piled everywhere. And I'd like to get in there and pull all those out, but if I did that, I would need to wash everything, and they've actually got a water problem problem. And I would spend the entire day doing nothing but washing. There's so much that it would actually be worth it for me to drive 30 miles away to get to the nearest laundromat and just stay there all day doing clothes. But if those got out of the way by themselves, it would open up like 75% more space, and then I could actually clean those 2 rooms. But as far as the overwhelming part, just trying to figure out how to thin this pile down and get it into some sort of storage that wasn't overtaking any room, that was really, really difficult. And every time I thought I had it beat, and I'd look around the room and go, okay, that's cluttered, but at least it's not too bad. It's way, way better than it was. Then I'd look up at that pile and realize I had so much more to sort through. And it's like, man, where am I going to put this? I should have just taken it all to Jason's house and just put it in his living room while he's gone. Left a note that said, "You're welcome." So one thing you'll notice if you're ever trying to clean up something that's super cluttered, you can sweep all you want, but until everything is put in its place, you will have to continue to sweep, because every time you move a box, a little bit of dirt falls off. And so with something that's this cluttered, I had to end up sweeping this floor and mopping the floor about 6 or 7 times each. This hutch, we're not going to pull everything out of it because there's so much in it. All we're going to do is just take the stacks that already exist and straighten up those stacks and get them symmetrical, because everything was piled pretty much where she needed it to be. It's just that it was all kind of unsymmetrical and chaotic. So all I'm doing is straightening up piles. As I get down to that bottom shelf, I start to pull some things out because that's cluttered enough to where I couldn't just straighten up the stacks. But you can see those top 2 shelves just by straightening up what already existed. It made it look 100 times cleaner than it actually was, or than it was before. Check out how dirty that mirror is. It's hard to see whenever I zoom in on it here in just a bit because the camera does weird things when you try to film mirrors, but you can tell how filthy it is as I walk across, right like in front of it. Here in a few, I'm going to use my homemade APC. For new viewers, that stands for all-purpose cleaner, and I make that with isopropyl alcohol, water, and a few drops of Dawn dish soap. The ratio of that is 70% alcohol, 30% water, and say 5 or 6 drops of Dawn. I wash that off with a microfiber rag, and then I go over it to polish clean it with a dry, ultra-fine microfiber towel. So suck it. This room is like a back entranceway. It's like an exit to a deck. And this is where a big bulk of all their stuff just gets piled. But most of the stuff that's in this room are things that they legitimately use. Not everything, but it's where a lot of the stuff they use ends up being. So there's not a ton of trash here. I do get rid of some trash. I find some dirty clothes that I put away. Those 2 bar stools are actually broken, and I won't know that for a few more seconds because I cleaned off the seats and everything. Then when I tried to pick it up, I was like, oh, the whole back comes off. So I ended up putting those outside on their deck, and then they can dispose of those later. But that opened up at least 2 small sections of floor that I could then restuff with stuff. So all I'm doing with this one is the same thing we did in the dining room. I'm trying to pack away as much stuff as possible and try to get it kind of Tetrised in as best I can. But this room is not a priority. This one I just wanted to kind of unpile it just so I could sweep and mop in there. And then they're going to have to go through all that stuff and figure out what they want to keep and what they want to throw away, because all I can do is just try to get things out of the floor so they can walk through it. But I can't just start, like I get a bunch of comments all the time that's like, if I'd have cleaned that place, I'd have thrown everything away. And it's like, no, you wouldn't have. Like, 1, you wouldn't have cleaned it, not for free. And 2, you can't just go through somebody's house and just toss all their stuff. Like, even if it means nothing to you, it does mean something to them, and it's their decision on whether to keep it or not. So I try to at least be respectful enough that I take the stuff that they are currently keeping and just try to find a way to not have it sitting out in the open. Now, if it was mine, if this was my stuff, I would have thrown away about 80% of all this. Now, if we are able to come back here and do a deep clean, what's going to happen is I'm going to move pretty much everything out of all these rooms, 1 room at a time, and then clean this as if I just moved into this place that day. So I'll be able to get all the floors, all the cabinets, pretty much every surface. Then we can take the stuff that we moved out and just little bits at a time figure out what can go in there and what can be stored elsewhere. I mean, there is no other place to store this stuff, but what I would rather happen is she just lets me do the dumpster thing and says, fine, I haven't used this in ages, so let's get rid of it. My rule of thumb whenever I'm cleaning out a really unorganized house and something that's super cluttered is I tell the person, if you haven't used something in, say, like 2 months, just get rid of it. You know, aside from things like pictures, like you're not going to use a picture for 6 months, But if it's a practical item that you don't use hardly ever, let's just get rid of it or donate it or whatever. And then with clothing, if you go like a whole season without wearing, say let's say you go through the whole winter and you don't wear some of your winter clothes, just get rid of the clothes you didn't wear. You obviously don't want them, you don't like them, they're not useful to you, let's just trash them. Same thing, you go through all summer and you find there are certain outfits that you just never touch. They're just taking up space, they're occupying your house in a way that they shouldn't be. That's the easiest way to get rid of things. The harder way is looking around your house after you've done that and finding out that you're still overcluttered, but everything you like in the house, like you genuinely love it. At that point, you've got to make some sacrifices and say, my space is more valuable than my stuff, or my stuff is more valuable than my space. And then I just restacked these baskets in a much more linear way. They were just kind of crammed in there and they were all over the place. But I went ahead and restacked those and resituated them to where they just go straight up and down now and they don't jut out into that entranceway. Then after that, I go into the living room and I dust the whole area. Then I do some very minor polish cleaning, like I cleaned up their TV. I used liquid gold on that little dresser below it. And if you ever want to clean a TV, if it's just a cheap TV, don't do this on super expensive ones, but on cheap ones, you can use the APC solution that I described earlier, spray it directly on the rag and not the TV, wipe down the screen, and then immediately follow it up with that ultrafine microfiber. If it's an expensive TV, just use a slightly damp rag and then dry that off with a dry rag. But that usually takes care of any fingerprints and dust and streaks or whatever. But then after that, I just sweep and mop this floor and call it a day. And then next week, hopefully I'll be doing both of their bathrooms. And they said both bathrooms are pretty bad, so that should be a fairly interesting video. I spent about 5 hours on this little dining room, and the living room only took just a couple minutes. But yeah, about 5 hours on just the dining room by itself. If you like this channel and you want a little bit more, I do an extra video every Wednesday for the members section. I have a Midwest Magic Cleaning Superfan section. It's kind of YouTube's version of Patreon, I guess. It's like a subscription model, and it's strictly there just to help out YouTubers that you like. Don't feel obligated to do that by any means, but if you want the extra video and you want to support the channel, that's a pretty decent way to do it. For those of you who are members, I will see you on Wednesday, and for those of you who are not, I will see you in hell. Nah, just kidding. We'll see you on next Saturday. Later.